Well, hi there, everybody. Nathan Blazak here with ApplyHypnosis.com. I'm really excited to have you in this video because I'm going to share with you a specific strategy that has been working really well for me and those that I've been recently sharing it with. And it's sort of like this advanced method, if you will, of being able to persuade and influence other people on a very deep subconscious level. And it's sort of one of those secrets that will allow you to basically use your tone of voice correctly, your gestures correctly, and as well as have the proper body language that will speak and communicate in a way that is very appealing to other people. You know, when I first got started learning about hypnosis, conversational hypnosis, obviously I was interested in picking up girls. That's basically what the whole premise behind why I wanted to learn how to use it. And then later I had found out that it could also be used in sales and basically when I was doing door-to-door conversations, door-to-door selling with people selling vacuum cleaners is where I really started to understand that this could be used outside of just getting girls to like you. But when I first got started, I thought it always had to do with specific language, how you used your words. You know, when I thought of covert or conversational hypnosis, I was under the impression that perhaps maybe you could get someone to finally, as you're talking to them, to go like this, right? And later I found out that if you're really boring, sometimes that tends to happen. In fact, when I'm talking to my wife sometimes and telling her about my day, she's so exhausted. You know, we have 3 children, 2 of them being twins. She's so exhausted that she passes out. We're not talking about particular strategies where you're speaking to someone in the traditional sense of hypnosis, where if they were coming into a clinical setting, they would close their eyes, they would get into a relaxed state of mind, and we help them to focus on a specific idea. Instead, what the secret that I'm going to be sharing with you that has taken me a long time to really kind of put into words, because it was something that I naturally did, and until I started to really step back and see what it was that I was doing to generate the kind of success that I wanted with people, was when I had realized that there's a basic ingredient, a very powerful ingredient, if you will, a very powerful strategy that you can use that will get you into getting more of what you want. And I'm going to tell you, it may seem overly simple, but it's extremely powerful, and that is what you're focusing on in your mind. Okay, there is a very devastating feeling that will generate so much repulsion in the people that you speak to, that if you have that going on internally, you're never going to get what you want in any social situation. You're not going to get people to like you. You're not going to be able to make sales. You're not going to be able to, you know, generate kind of, you know, a feeling or a connection with anybody. You're definitely not going to be persuasive and influential, because when you have that feeling, it repulses people. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about how that has been that was a huge problem that I had back in the past. And it's basically, that feeling is basically desperation. Okay, when you're desperate, it puts you in a frame of mind where you're trying to get something from someone, and instead of trying to go out there and get something from someone, you want to be able to draw them in to your world. Now, how can we accomplish this? Well, I'm going to give you 5 key traits and 5 key points that will enable you to accomplish this. First, you have to understand that the subconscious mind, the part in your brain that basically kind of is like a rudder. I want you to imagine this in your mind, if you will. I want you to imagine a giant ship, okay? And this ship can head into any destination that you want that ship to go, right? And it has a tendency of what we're focusing on in our mind, right? So if we have in our mind, oh man, bills are due, or oh man, I gotta get the girl, or oh, I gotta make this sale, then what tends to happen is you're using this universal language for the subconscious mind. The unconscious mind knows very specific universal types of language. For example, in every language, different languages outside of English, you know, there's certain words like because be causes in all of them, because we think in cause and effect. Okay, so when we're desperate and we're trying to get the girl, we're trying to get the sale, we're trying to get the relationship, we're trying to do this, we want it so bad that we resort to trying to use language patterns, or we tend to want to be influential with what we say to people so that we can get them to do what we want, right? And what tends to happen is that universal language, you're basically saying, I don't have it. I don't have it yet. Right? So if we're in that frame of mind and we're desperate and we're like, oh, I got to come up with the right language, I got to come up with the right words, I got to say the right things because I really got to get this. What tends to happen is what you're really saying on a subconscious level is, I don't have it. And let's go back to the ship now. So the primary focus of a desperate person is they're thinking, I got to get this so bad. They're screaming, I'm not getting the things that I want, right? And then it expresses itself through your body language, through your facial expressions. And you tend to fumble with your words or choose the wrong words to use. And as simple as this may sound, it is extremely true. Okay? We all know people that are desperate. We all know people, we could sit here and list people all day long who are trying to get this, trying to get that. And you can just tell that they're just not someone who's getting something that you want. So we tend not to want to relate to people like that, right? People like that they're just kind of, we put them in the back burners of our mind. But when you're able to step away from that and realize that your subconscious mind is kind of like the rudder. I mean, you got this little tiny rudder on the back of this giant ship that can steer you into whatever direction that you want to go. Okay, so you got to understand that. Okay, so you have this giant ship of life, if you will, that will send you off into whatever direction that you really want to go, right? So if you're thinking about what you want in your future, okay, instead of feeling like you got to get it, you kind of have to step inside of that image. So draw up an image in your mind right now, if you will, of something that you desperately have always wanted, right? But don't think along the lines of, I don't have it yet. Step inside of it knowing that that little rudder, that unconscious part of your mechanism and brain will steer you into that direction. I don't know how it happens, okay? I could sit here and I don't know what your religion is. I grew up in a Christian background. Well, it started out as Catholic, then I went to evangelist, and my dad kind of jumped around a little bit, and we were kind of dragged around to different religions until he found the religion that he really enjoyed. And I don't know if it doesn't really matter if you believe in a higher power, if you call it God or Allah or whatever. And I couldn't even explain it if I wanted to, right? I have a kind of an understanding of it. And what I understand is that there is a mechanism inside our brain that little tiny rudder will steer us into the right direction to help us step into that image. You might meet the right people, you might pick up the right books, you might even watch the right video where you go, aha, I get it, right? So what you do is you draw that image in your mind of something as if you already have it, that you're not really attached to the outcome. This is just, you don't really care so much about if you get it. You just step inside of it as if it's already happening for you, okay? And it may seem like you're faking it until you make it, partially because it's true, but I think a lot of people have the wrong misconceptions about faking it until you make it. They tend to take it overboard and maybe lie or tell stories that aren't true, or they tend to exaggerate or whatever it is, that is kind of like of a deceptive nature, right? They're deceiving themselves, and so therefore they end up deceiving other people with the language that they use, right? And the words that they say and how they talk to other people and so on and so forth. So the first step is to realize how your unconscious mind works. It's that little rudder that steers you into that direction. We don't know if it's the higher power, the metaphysical realm. Some people call it like the ether reaches through. I don't know, right? But it's not just positive thinking either, okay? You can't just think like, I'm going to think positive and positive things happen. Positive thinking really does help. It's going to be way better than thinking negative, right? Because what we tend to focus on expands. I learned this from T. Harv Eker in Millionaire Mind. I don't know about you, but I like to feed my brain specific information from people that are successful. I pick up books all the time, and I read books all the time, every day. in fact, because I want to feed my brain more and more information that will help lead me into the direction that I want to go. And you'll find it's pretty surprising. If you get into the habit of doing something simple as that, you'll pick up the right book at the right time, right? You'll read the right paragraphs at the right time that'll help keep you into that direction that you're holding in your mind. So you gotta have a vision, okay? A big, grand vision. A lot of people go after like little goals, like I want this car, or I want this house, or, I want to live on the beach and put my feet in the sand and just not worry about anything because there's so much money coming in autopilot and I don't have to do anything, right? They think these things, and it's great. That's a great vision, but at the end of the day, material possessions, all of those things, once you get those things, you begin to have this tendency of feeling a little bit uneasy. And if you don't keep moving forward, then you always move backwards. That's what I always say anyway. So starting out with little goals is okay, but you got to have a bigger vision. What is it that you really want to do as an individual that provides value to other people? You see, if you want to be attractive to others, you want to make more sales, you want to have amazing relationships, then the second pointer that I can give you is to automatically allow that higher power, I don't care what you call it, I refer to it as God, because that's just what I grew up with, because I grew up in a Christian background. But some people refer to it as Jesus, some people refer to it as Allah, there's Buddhists out there that refer, it doesn't really matter, right? Because if you study them all, at the end of the day, they all say the same things, basically that if you focus on crap, then you tend to steer that ship with that rudder towards crap in life, right? But if you focus on positive images, then that rudder tends to steer you towards that direction. So I always think I always tell people, think big, but think beyond big. Like a lot of people think those material possessions are big, that fast car or whatever. I've had all of that stuff. I've had the snowmobiles, the dirt bikes, the boats, the sports cars, the stereo systems, the giant houses, the, traveling the world, doing whatever I want, eating at the finest restaurants, speaking on stage. Those were what I thought were big visions. But at the end of the day, it didn't make me happy. What made me happy was having a huge vision, a vision of what I could do for other people, how I could help them. What is it that I had as a special skill? So you want to sit down and list out what your true vision is, what it is that you genuinely want to do for people. And if you can manage to do that, it's going to set you into the right direction. Now, the fourth tip that I want to share with you is pretty simple, okay? The fourth tip is you have to be patient, okay? I know that there is the study that I did anyway, that I've come to the conclusion that it's very necessary for human beings to want things now, right? You see it all over the place, don't you? Like, people want things now. Like, if you're in the internet marketing community, for example, people that want to learn how to make money online. I've been in that niche and industry for almost 10 years now, and I work and consult with people with that every single day. And what tends to happen is they all want this magic button that will magically make their dreams come true. Millions of dollars pouring into their bank account, when in reality, that they hear these stories, right? They see these stories about other people that are able to do that, right? What they don't see, what they don't realize, is that usually people that have become a giant success in life always started from nothing, almost all the time. Look at Tony Robbins, for example. Everybody knows the story about him if you've ever studied him or read his books. Everybody knows that he was living in a one-bedroom apartment washing dishes in a bathtub, and look at him today. He's in the Fiji Islands. He's doing firewalks and teaching people how to empower themselves to accomplish their goals and their dreams, right? And he started out with nothing, and then he built on what? Small successes, right? People don't really understand the power in building on small successes, right? Sometimes when you're steering your ship into that image, it's going to take some time to get there. Some people might be able to fuel their ship in such a way where they can build a giant motor on the back and really race into that direction, but it doesn't happen in an instant, does it? What you tend to see when people, like, for example, online, they say, oh, you make millions of dollars, I did this launch or whatever, and I put $50,000 into my bank account in 10 minutes, or I sold 1.2 million. What they what most people don't realize is the blood, sweat, and tears that they're willing to put into that process in order for that to happen. Sure, when you're bringing in and you're drawing in enough money and you're able to reinvest into a business and you're able to get more leads and attract more clients and attract more traffic or what have you, sure, you're going to build a giant contact database. You can send your emails to it. You can create partnerships with other people with giant lists. They combine all of this focus in this market into one particular offer. And sure, it is possible, right? It is possible for them to make millions or multiple thousands in a single day, right? But they didn't do it out of the gate, right? And that's the unfortunate thing that tends to happen with a lot of people. So the final tip that I want to give to you is to maintain unwavering faith, okay? A lot of people don't really know the story about what happened to me just recently, okay? Some people do. If you've been on my list for a while, then maybe you know, okay? But I had picked up mentors. You know, obviously, I'm sort of a marketer. I am a marketer, right? Because I do my business online. I create videos like this. I create products. I do whatever I can. I have services. I do what I can to provide value. You know, I've always been an entrepreneur by spirit, right? I didn't buy into the whole 9-to-5 job. I always wanted to be able to maintain and manage to be able to support my family without having to answer to anyone. I always wanted to be my own boss, and I still am today, right? But it didn't happen that way for me right off the bat. I had worked in the Christmas trees, basically swinging a pruning knife. Constantly every day, pruning about 1,000 trees a day. It's about like 30,000 swings a day. Boy, does your arm, I used to get tendonitis and all of that. It paid really well though when I was a teenager. But I realized that, man, I'd see these 40-year-old guys still doing this. They were addicted to drugs. Some of them were just complete burnout. You could tell that their bodies were beat up. I knew that that's not where I was going to spend the rest of my life, and I definitely wasn't going to be doing that forever, right? But the money was good, and it enabled me to get ahead and to be able to continue my studies and my learning, right? Because I realized that leaders are readers, right? So you got to read all the time, constantly read books, okay? That's pretty much my fifth tip. Is you have to read, and you have to realize that you have to maintain that unwavering faith that whatever that grand vision is in your mind can completely change the way that you live your life, okay? It may not happen at first, you know, it didn't for me. I went into the military. I was in the United States Air Force. I got out of the military, out of the Air Force, and then I just realized that I wanted to do business online. By then, I had already created a journal called all about covert and conversational hypnosis. I had a very good background before I went into the military. That's why I got out, because I realized, what the heck was I doing? Here I am, an entrepreneur, and I'm living in this world. I've stepped into this environment where they were basically telling you how you could and couldn't live your life, what you could and couldn't do. And you had to answer to people above you, and those people had to answer people, and there was this hierarchy. I didn't like it. I wanted to be on the top of that hierarchy, right? So when I got out, I decided that I was going to go move, just pick up and move. I wasn't living anywhere. Nobody really wanted me to live with them. My family was basically giving up on me because they thought I was just a complete loser and a burnout, and I kind of was, because I really didn't have anything good going for me. It seemed like I could never finish or follow through with anything. And partially because I thought for the longest time that I had ADD or whatever, which incidentally turned out that I was just drinking too much caffeine, right? My mind would go all over the place. I couldn't finish a sentence. I stuttered all the time. And that's why I started to study covert and conversational hypnosis. So the first few years of reading, I didn't really feel any different, right? Even the first year, first 2 years, I didn't feel much different than anybody else. I was starting to learn things, but I didn't feel different. But then a couple more years went by, and I continued to read every day, and I continued to study the greatest leaders in the world, and I started, because I wanted to join them, right? That was my grand vision. Like, I want to be up there. I want to be recognized for accomplishing very awesome things, right? I want to be recognized as someone of importance, a leader, if you will. And then about 5 years goes by, and then I started to notice that I had a really hard time relating with anybody that I used to relate to. It seemed like I was sort of leaving them behind based on the growth and the development that was happening to me. And I always held that vision in my mind. Well, for the longest time, the big vision that I had was traveling around the world and sharing with people live on stage my secrets, teaching them the same things that I'm teaching you now. And I got the opportunity to do that. And then I realized when I got there, that is absolutely nothing that I wanted to do. You know, I went on stage, I started talking to people. I realized that the ones that were speaking on stage, sure, they may have been making a couple of $100,000 a year like I was, but they were spending probably half of that traveling. They were living out of hotel rooms. They were dependent on the sales that they were making as speaking at these live events. And sure, it gave me the credibility that I needed, and it helped me to rise to the top. You know, credibility is really important. And I share it all the time. I share my accomplishments with people. It's just all part of the persuasion process and the unconscious process of getting people to have that faith or have that trust in you that you really are someone who is accomplishing things that they perhaps might want to accomplish. But I realized that, you know, I have a family. I met my wife, and we ended up giving birth to our firstborn. And then a few years after that, about 5 years later, she gave birth to twin boys. So we had 3 sons, 2 of them being twins. Boy, did that keep us really busy with all of that, right? But I picked up some mentors, right? Picked up some mentors that helped keep me focused on my vision, my big picture, that unwavering faith. And of course, I ran into some crazy tragedies, and the most recent one being where I was driving back from grocery shopping, the first time my wife and I had any time at all alone. And incidentally, we went grocery shopping because, man, that was the first time we got to, you know, nobody wanted to take care of screaming twin babies. So we were basically, you know, for the first 2 to 3 years of our life, every day taking care of these twin boys. And it was such a relief to be able to do that, like go grocery shopping and such, without them screaming in the cart or whatever. And unfortunately, on the way back, on a highway, it was dark, nothing I could do about it. I accidentally killed a pedestrian, hit him. It was a very tragic accident, and I got to tell you, that tested my faith a lot because it really threw me for a loop. It made me really reevaluate all of the things that I was doing. Like I kind of sunk into depression for a little while. So did my wife. We really had a hard time dealing with that for a while. And I'm not telling you this for you to feel sorry for me, because it turns out to be a pretty happy ending, right? But that led into a little bit of a destructive thinking. My ship was in a direction, you know, and it was heading in a direction really fast of just the success was building. And then, you know, all of a sudden I was hounded by attorneys trying to sue me. And so I had to pretty much put my entire business, everything that I was doing, on hold. And it did require a lot of my time just for my business, but I needed to investigate a little bit about like what I needed to do. You know, I never have trusted lawyers in my life. You know, it never made sense to me. You know, you get a traffic ticket, for example, and you hire this attorney, or they appoint an attorney for you, and they usually always end up saying what? Oh, well, just plead guilty and we'll get it down to this and pay them this much. And it happened to me before, you know, like where I got a jaywalking ticket and I went into the courtroom and it was just like a single file line of people, you're guilty, pay us this much. You know, I sat there with my calculator adding it up, and by the time that I got up there, they had already earned $20,000 in fines and fees. And I just could never fathom or understand that idea. So it put me in my ship. Sometimes in life, okay, you can hold on to a vision that you want in your mind. And sometimes there are things like if your ship's heading and it's on the ocean, sometimes there's a reef, like a coral reef, or sometimes there's a huge rock, or sometimes a storm comes along and it sends you into a different direction. You don't even know why. right? You don't even know why it's done this. And you can look around and you can say, oh my gosh, feel sorry for me. Oh my gosh, my life, I'm doomed and failure and I can't believe this happened. And these freaks of nature tend to happen to us. And at the end of the day, you have to know and you have to realize that you have unwavering faith in that vision. That sometimes those freaks of nature, those accidental occurrences, those things that tend to happen are for a reason, right? You may not know the reason right away. It may seem like it's the worst and most devastating experience that you could ever experience. And it truly was. It was a very difficult period of time for me, especially when you had to deal with these authority figures, right? But at the end of the day, what had happened was I stopped them dead in their tracks, especially at the end when they conveniently changed the name. It wasn't me anymore, right? And I did it all alone, all by myself. And I picked up some very, very, very serious information about how the world was really working, about how and why there were, how the leaderships are set up, how why the governments are set up the way they are, this grand illusion, this sort of world bubble control type deal. I kind of had this, it's just crazy what happens when you have your unwavering faith. It's almost unexplainable. I took a lot of walks out in nature. I spent a lot of time asking questions. I was very persistent, like, how can I? It's very powerful. How can I? Because eventually what happened to me was I had this kind of like downloaded into my brain all of this powerful perspective. It was almost like it's kind of a weird experience. I don't want to explain it. It was very, 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 very weird for me. But I sort of, in a nutshell, was able to kind of like be this observer of things that were going on in the world, where it seemed like everybody else were just kind of going with the flow and they had no clue of what was going on. They just sort of felt powerless. They felt like they were in their place in life, that they had to answer to authority figures. And I started to develop these really, really powerful attitudes that have, kind of made me feel like I've leapt above and joined the ranks of specific people, some of the greatest leaders in the world. And what happened is I started to attract some of the greatest leaders in the world. I started to attract specific people that kind of shocked me, even, that they reached out to contact me to talk to me about some of the things that I had discovered and had known and had learned on a mass control basis, right? And so later in the future, I might create a little bit more about how that works. Not really quite sure yet if I'm going to do that. But at the end of the day, you realize that no matter what, you have to have that vision. You have to write your vision down, your grand vision. What is it that you want to do for people? So in this video, what I wanted to do was share with you those tips, okay? So when you're trying to communicate to people, don't try. Put yourself into the outcome and don't care whether or not they come along with you. You see, at the end of the day, we're all just the same. You're a human being, I'm a human being. I think, you think. But we all have our own thumbprint, don't we? We all have our own fingerprints. That means that we all have our different tastes, we have our different desires, we have our different preferences, we have different goals and aspirations. That means that not everybody's gonna want to be a part of you, right? Not everybody's gonna click with you. You're not gonna get every single person to relate to you. You're only gonna get certain people that you have an affinity with. Does that make sense? You're only going to attract certain people that you understand. You can say, hey, look at me. I've been there. I've done that. I've been through this. If you've been through that as well, then, hey, I can relate. Here's some of the things that I found out that has helped me. I'm not sure if it's going to work for you, but hey, at the end of the day, I just wanted to share it with you to see if you could maybe perhaps get some sort of insights or some sort of results out of what I've been doing. Okay? So keep your mind focused on a grand vision, okay? And you'll find that you're gonna have the right tone of voice. You're gonna have the right facial expressions. You're gonna use the right gestures. One of the worst things you can do is try to clone yourself like someone else. You know, the way I communicate is completely different than someone else who may also be a great and excellent communicator, right? Some people are, they throw in a little bit more humor. Some people are direct and straight to the point. Some people communicate the way like I communicate. You communicate in your own way as well. But you gotta remember at the end of the day that don't be desperate. Desperation is just, you know, that's like trying to use a little paddle and force this big ship with your arms, and it exhausts the crap out of you because you're trying to force your way to that end result. When you're communicating with others and they'll see it, it'll be repulsive. Don't do that, okay? Instead, speak from the heart. Know what you want, know what you want to do and provide as a value for other people, and just let your heart speak. I promise you, there is absolutely nothing more hypnotic than that. Okay? So here's what I'd like you to do, okay? I would like you to just take a moment and sit down and write about your vision. That's it. Just write your vision on paper, your big vision. Forget the cars, forget the boats. Assume that you already have that kind of lifestyle. What is it, if money was no issue, if that boat was no issue, if that truck or that car was no issue, if that big mansion you may want to live in is no issue with the swimming pool and the bikini boppers, whatever, right? Let's assume that you are already there, okay? What will you be doing with your time? What will you be doing for other people? And begin to share and spread that message with the world. You know, it only takes one idea. Hopefully this idea will give you a shot at being able to influence other people in ways that are going to be more rewarding on a long-term basis. Okay? So if you like this video, please just let me know. There's a comment box in below. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me if you need to learn more. Tell me if you tell me what you get from it. You know, maybe share your vision with other people. The more you share your vision with other people, especially the ones that you love, they're able to get on that same vision with you and support you. It's amazing what happens when you start sharing your vision with the world, because other people begin to share that same vision for you, and they begin to lend helping hands, and you start to attract the right kind of people to help raise you towards that vision. And incidentally, they get to go along for the ride on that wonderful ship, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, most people don't even understand that they're on a ship of life and that they have that little rudder that can be steered into that direction that you might have in mind now, my friend. Do you not? So do me that favor. Just post a comment down below. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.